right, just give me, if you don't mind, Alex, I'll just jump right in.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, thank you, everyone. I'll keep this short. We are low on time. My general audience is 10th and 12th grade with social science. And really looking, for me, my journey has been, moving towards project-based learning and project-based assessments. So I teach government economics and world history, and looking at how I've adapted to not only the pandemic and school closures, but also how do we get kids designing more, and how do we integrate technology in an effective way, not just replacing paper. So the first thing is me moving into a student choice in terms of how we assess students, or how I assess students, I should say. So this is a rundown of what the kids get, and I tell them, in lieu of taking a test or a unit exam, we've been moving towards all project-based assessments. This year, my kids have not taken a single test, and has been moving towards skill-based learning, as well as building digital literacy in my classroom beyond the content that I teach. And the way that I make this happen is they get a Google Doc, and I can drop this in the chat really quick. So if you want to make a copy of this on your own to make, to really make it your own, you're more than welcome to do so. So what happens is that the students get student choice. And so something I've been doing, part of that Google Doc, is the bottom of the doc, they have a little choice board, right? And they have to pick a station for that given unit. And each station is different in terms of skill set, in terms of digital literacy, in terms of application, as well as to what degree are they delivering the content, right? Is it just recall, or is it a higher level of application? So this one, station 5 for this particular one, this is where they pose as a news anchor, and they're covering some story in some way. And these apply both to my sophomores and my seniors. And I try to make them broad, and I try to design the rubrics accordingly to make this work. To take this a step further, what I do is the kids learn this process the first quarter, and then the second quarter, they pick and they discuss and they brainstorm what their stations are going to be for quarter 2. So not only do they have, the student choice with quarter 1, but then they're designing their own stations. And I tell them, what do you want to work on? Do you want to work on podcasting? Do you want to learn how to code? Do you want to work on your public speaking, right? Or is it something like, hey, especially my seniors, do you want to work on your resume building, right? And working through those skills and letting those skills guide the content as we're making our way through the school year. And it's pretty powerful when kids are like, hey, this is what I want to learn how to do. This is how I want to be assessed. And the outcome can be quite powerful. So this is an example of this year, this student, this was us in the judicial branch in government. And so what this is this student, she did a writing piece of it, right? And then this is something to the left. This is something that she drew. This is something that that she designed on her own. And the project the kids picked was to do a art project, right? So they're like, hey, with distance learning, we want to find ways to get away from the screen. So I give them that option, right? Which I think this year is needed. So she drew this, she painted this, and part of the criteria that the kids laid out, not me, but what the kids laid out is look, we want to show you the steps on how we built this. So this is just another picture of her showing some of the steps, and there are a few more, but this one I think is pretty cool because it just it shows the canvas, it shows kind of her work and the tool that she's using there. So that's really my student, my project-based assessments. But next is something that is really project-based learning. So in other words, using the project to expose students to new content, right? So it's not an assessment. In fact, what you're going to see is this is how I start off this chapter with my world history students. So the chapter is totalitarianism. It is, so in between the world wars. And what this is really driven to really get the kids to get their hands dirty with the vocab. So basically, the kids design and create and film their own silent movie. So they can't talk, and they have to communicate a word like fascism, right, without speaking. They do get the definition. No one else knows what the word is. And when they publish their work, they can level up. So I use the gamification piece where they can level up or get extra credit if they can communicate their words successful. And so just give you a quick glance of this, because I know we're running out of time. I show them what a silent movie is, right? And they do this in groups. Their job is to communicate the meaning of that word within their silent movie. I tell them text can be very limited in the movie. I do use Adobe Rush, part of the Adobe suite that we have in our district. Some students decide to use iMovie if they have it at home, but it depends on the situation. This is a project that it gets jigsawed across the group. And in terms of the why I do this, it's like, again, it's using the project to get them thinking initially out of the gate when I start this part of the curriculum, right? And getting that initial exposure and letting the project guide that learning. And it's not something that I would consider an assessment per se. This slide's not too important. These are the different jobs that they have and how I jigsaw the project as a whole. So they have to, they have to do the script part of it, right? They have to do the storyboard. Somebody that is probably a little bit more comfortable with the Adobe Rush than they do, working through the technology piece of it. So these are the words. And again, nobody knows what word that group has except for that word. And communicating these words can be challenging for the kids, especially that 10th grade level. So what this is this is just an example of one of the work. So if you don't mind, and hopefully it plays well. If it doesn't, I think Alex has my back on this. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to play it, see if it works. And then in the chat, you can go ahead and pick one of the words that you see that you think is being communicated in the silent movie. Let me know if you can hear it.
We can hear it.
Yeah, and so then that gets published, right? And then the kids have to pick, and Zach, my buddy Zach, got it 100% correct there. But the kids have to guess, and I published that in a different class period, right? And they're able to level up and get that extra credit. And it's a good way for me to start this unit. Looking at fascism and complicated things like communism and what that means on the global stage and how that's going to propel history into World War II. If you have questions, please drop them in the chat, but I'm going to hand this over back to Alex.